Hope we all had a really good keynote. We are going to be walking around a bunch today, so enjoy sitting right now. I would like to introduce you to our session today, Bridging the Gap with Technology Support and District Goals. When we get to the Q&A session, I'll be walking around with this microphone to make sure that we pick up all of your really useful questions and all of our great answers on our recording. So I would like to welcome Morgan to go ahead and let us know about this.
So we know that effective technology support and integration goes beyond just providing software and hardware. We also have to be able to empower our educators to design meaningful and impactful learning experiences for our students. So today I'm going to talk about how we are very strategic and how we do that, and how we are very overt in our alignment with larger district goals and initiatives to accomplish that. So I'm Morgan Cave. I'm the Director of Instructional Technology in Richardson ISD. This is my 20th year there, my 20th year in public education. I started out as an elementary school teacher. I taught at a math, science, technology magnet school, which is really what brought me to technology. And when I was teaching first grade in 2013, we got a class set of iPads. And that really sums up how I ended up here. But I stayed in the classroom for about 4 more years, experiencing kind of the Wild West of first bringing iPads into the classroom. And then in 2017, moved over into instructional technology. So I was a pre-K-12 specialist for about 4.5 years, and then moved into my current role in January of 2022. I'm also an Apple Distinguished Educator and an ISTE Certified Educator. Along with being a longtime employee of my district, I also live there and have 2 kids in the district. So I get lots of opportunities for some end-user feedback in the form of my children, but also the other parents at all of the events. So lots of points for feedback. So some things that we're going to go over the workflow for today, talking about what our district goals and initiatives are, and hopefully there will be some things that you hear that are similar to your own organization. I know we're not unique in having things like a graduate profile or a strategic plan, how we align to those, and then of course your questions. So a little bit about Richardson ISD and our environment. We have about 37,000 students across 50 campuses. So we have a large organization, I think, and 30 of those campuses are Title I. We have about 5,500 employees, and in addition to that, we cover 46 square miles, meaning that we have the city of Richardson, but we also go into the city of Dallas. So Richardson is located just north of Dallas. But our district also encompasses parts of Dallas and Garland. So just to give you an idea of what that environment looks like. And then we are a mixed device environment. So I always joke when we have a call with a vendor or somebody new and they start asking us, do you have this or this? And my answer is always like both. Yes, we have all the things. If you can think of it, we probably have that. So we have iPads in pre-K through 6th grade in the hands of our students. In 7th through 12th grade, we have Chromebooks. Our elementary teaching staff have MacBook Airs. Our secondary fine arts and visual arts staff have MacBook Pros. Our other secondary staff and our paraprofessionals have HP laptops. All of our teachers, elementary and secondary, have an iPad for instructional use, and then every single classroom at all levels and then all of our central buildings, we have Apple TVs. So a lot going on in a lot of places. So the technology department in Richardson encompasses networking services, instructional technology where I am, as well as operations. And of course, we all have to work together to ensure that our students have what they need. So this is from our district website. And you can see how even in our overview of technology, we directly align ourselves with district goals. So we are committed to a positive transformation of teaching and learning that brings digital resources, access, expertise, and skills to our students in support of the RISD graduate profile. Through our vision, mission, and goals, the district is enriching all learning by maintaining an environment where every student has access to a device and every teacher has guidance and support to facilitate learning with technology. So you can see bringing all of our departments together, talking about that infrastructure, the devices, and the instructional support to make sure that we are supporting our students in reaching our ultimate goal of them graduating with the skills in our graduate profile. So some of our district initiatives and priorities. We have a North Star goal that comes from our school board. So our school board sets that, and that really charts our course for where we are going with our students and also our staff. We have a graduate profile. I know in the last few years I've heard at many conferences and talking to other education professionals, this is pretty common for districts to have a portrait of a graduate or a graduate profile. We adopted that in June of 22. We also have a strategic plan, and our strategic plan was adopted in June of 2023. And that strategic plan is what also informs our district improvement plan and our campus plan. So that is critical to make sure that we're aligned to. And then we have a learner growth experience. And that is what our instructional staff use to have common language around the phases that teachers are planning for and the experiences that students are going for. So, you know, like many in public education, we have to be really we have to make some hard decisions, and we have to make sure that where we allocate our funding and our support and our resources is really tightly aligned with the ultimate broader district goals. And the way that we adopt the language from these things and the way that we tie everything that we do back to these things helps ensure that it's clear to everyone in our own department and outside how essential we are to the district reaching their goals and accomplishing their priorities. So, you know, sometimes in technology, I work in a pretty teacher and student-facing role. I support 2 teams of specialists, 7 that are central and 8 that are out on campuses that work directly with teachers and students. But I know that that's not true for everyone in my department. And sometimes it can feel like they don't have that direct connection to the classroom, to what the students are doing. But by making sure that our language and our resources always come back to these things, everyone can feel that connection to directly what students are doing and accomplishing that goal of reaching the skills in our graduate profile. So some of the strategies that we use for this, the first one is professional learning. That is the main work that my 2 teams of specialists do. And so of course that refers to how we train and support our educators and how we equip them with the knowledge and skills to really leverage the technology we provide, both the devices and then the software. Collaborative planning, so it's really critical that we plan with other departments, whether that is teaching and learning or campus administrators, to make sure that we have a clear understanding of what their needs are, what their challenges are, and plan for how we can best support those. I had an example of that would be that I had the opportunity to be on both our graduate profile committee for the district and our strategic planning committee. And that was helpful, not because of having a seat at the table for a voice, but because of being able to be a part of that process and hear everything that went on behind the scenes. So to me, when I see those things and when I see our graduate profile and I see our strategic plan, I know how much more there is to it than just the words that are in that final draft. I know all the iterations of that and all of the debates behind the scenes and the intention and thought that went into the word choice of every single piece of that, and that helps me make sure that my teams can do their best job to support. And then, of course, resource allocation. So making sure that we have the right devices, the right tools, and people in place to support. So I'm going to start with our North Star goal. So this is our North Star goal, that every student, teacher, and leader will meet or exceed their academic growth goals. And this is something that has become a huge piece of the work that my department does and my teams specifically do. So when you read that, there's nothing specifically in there about technology. However, part of this goal, this is what fed into our strategic plan, and part of that is that students are setting 2 goals, and our staff are also setting 2 goals, one that is aligned to data and one that is aligned to practices or life skills. And technology is the vehicle for housing those, for curating the evidence, and for communicating those back out to families and to the community. So while technology is not part of that goal, we have become a critical piece of accomplishing this for our district. So, students might not be doing everything for their goal through technology, but they are going to use their devices to record a reflection, to create videos, to capture evidence, and then to be able to upload that into a portfolio that is then viewable for both their teachers and the other staff at their campus, but also back home for their families to be able to see that. And so, right there, that is one of the biggest ways this year that we have really been tightly aligned with that in our software that we are using, in our devices, our Chromebooks and our iPads, and then, of course, with my staff supporting teachers in what this looks like in practice. This is our graduate profile. And so in our graduate profile, we have 5 competencies. And I have been so embedded in this, I'm pretty sure I can name them without looking, but we have effective communication, problem solving and critical thinking, emotional intelligence, real world connections, and financial literacy. And within each of those, we also have 3 descriptors. And again, when you look at these, really technology is not mentioned specifically. And that was something when I was on this committee, actually. It was interesting because the community and student feedback mentioned technology specifically a lot, but we were doing this in 2022. And thinking about that time and what we had just been through, I knew that being really narrow and mentioning technology specifically really might box us into things that might change over the time that this was adopted. And so instead, you'll see broader language here. And what we do is make sure that when we are evaluating tools, when we are working with teachers, when we're planning for professional learning, we're talking about how we are embedded in each of these. And to the right in that chart, you'll see a resource that my team created that they use when they work with teachers, and it directly talks about how they hit these different competencies and things that they do through technology that align with those. So by not being specifically mentioned in that graduate profile, we have the ability to weave ourselves into every component of that. And we refer to this all the time. When we are talking to parents about why it's important for their children to have access to technology, including in elementary school, we are talking about building these skills and how we start developing these skills in our youngest learners at grade appropriate and age appropriate levels. So this is our strategic plan, and our strategic plan informs our district improvement plan for each year, and then that filters down into our campus improvement plan. So what is in there is really what is going to be the blueprint for the year for every department, and for what the campus priorities are and what the teacher priorities are. So it's really important for us to dive into that and make sure that what our own department goals and our own department support purchases, all of that really tightly aligns with what the strategic plan is, so that we can be clear in our value in supporting the district and accomplishing this. So these 2 things are the places where we are tightly aligned. That's both in the individual growth, which goes back to that North Star goal, and then also curriculum and learning. So these are 2 of the strategies that are, this is the first one, the strategies that are in the district improvement plan. You'll see that at the top, and then down at the bottom, that's what goes into the campus improvement plan. So implement and train all campus staff and students on Schoology and Seesaw as an LMS and as a portfolio for gathering artifacts that support their student growth goal. So you see us bridging that North Star goal that the board has set, and this goes all the way down to carrying out the work that we're doing on campuses, ensuring that we have a vital role to play in being able to meet that. another example. This is part of the curriculum and learning. So provide purposeful, innovative, and relevant professional learning opportunities for all staff to ensure technology integration that impacts teaching and learning and aligns with individual growth goals of all students and staff. So that is broad and really talking about our support. But what that allows us to do is make sure that when we are across those 50 campuses who all have a variety of needs and a variety of students, that we can do that, we can hold tight to this while also allowing that flexibility to make sure that in every single opportunity, we're making that very personalized and relevant. And then this is our learner growth experience. And so this came down as an action item out of the strategic plan. And these are the experiences that our teachers are designing for students. So the committee worked on what do we want a student to experience when they are in a classroom learning. And these are the phases. So we really, really hold tight to using this language when we are talking about anything that we do. When we are talking about devices and infrastructure, we're talking about how our things allow students to collaborate, how they allow students to explore new content in the wonder and discover phase, the access that we give to students to be able to create artifacts of their learning and then reflect back on that experience. And so when we are talking about any of the things that we do, including professional learning, we rely on this. Our teacher cohorts that we lead, we have teacher cohorts for both our elementary teachers on iPads and our secondary teachers on Chromebooks, and we center those sessions around each of these phases. And then we are very clear with how the devices and tools that we purchase provide teachers opportunities to create these experiences for students. You'll also see here, this is where we can come back to those other two things. We can tie to our portfolios and our North Star goal and practice graduate profile skills here also. So some other ways that we align here. So our software and hardware evaluation. When I meet with any of our vendors or any of our tools, whether it's something that we've had for a long time or something that we are looking into or revisiting, since we have had these pieces, I always share these ahead of time and ask them to provide insight on how do they see themselves supporting us in these things. Where do they see their device or their tool fitting in to supporting students in our graduate profile? How does it fit into our learner growth experience and those learning phases? How does it support teachers and students in meeting their goals and their portfolio? And so, of course, we can do that, and my team also does that, and I work on that. But I like to put that back on the other side for them to come up with ways that they're supporting us in those things. And then that helps us when we're talking about the funding that we have and how we use it, being able to directly tie back, again, that common language to those goals and initiatives and talking about how this supports something that is important to everyone in the district and to our community. We can really be clear about that and that direct line of support there. So again, our professional learning sessions, when we are working with teachers, we talk about how our specialists can come in and co-teach or provide that formal professional learning experience for exactly how technology supports everything that they're already doing. We know that being one more thing is not a successful model for technology. We have to be able to embed ourselves in the things that teachers and students are already doing, and we have to show them how we can help them do things in a better way, an easier way, or save themselves time. And so in all of our professional learning sessions, we are tying back to whether it's those big initiatives that I've already shared with you or specific campus initiatives or things that we know are in need for every educator in Texas, like a multilingual learner. We make sure that everything that we talk about ties back to all of those broader needs and goals. We make recommendations for screen time and device use. So I don't know if this happens anywhere else, but we do get community feedback and questions on what our students are doing, what are our students doing online, what do our students have access to, what guardrails are there and what safety things are in place to keep our students safe on devices. And so we make recommendations and we publish for how devices are used in the classroom, and screen time recommendations based on how the devices are used, not necessarily an amount of time, but how they're used. And we publish those both for our students, teachers, and our community. And again, we look at what our teaching and learning department is focused on, like those learning phases, and we apply that there. So when we're talking about screen time, whether it's with a new teacher or with a concerned parent, we're talking about how in that learner growth experience that we want students to be creating and reflecting and collaborating, and how our devices are geared to support them in doing that. And then we make recommendations on how they're used based on that. So really ensuring that we are supporting all of our departments while also minimizing the concerns that our community might have. And making that clear for teachers also. That's a way for us to communicate best practice without having to be a separate thing, without teachers thinking, okay, now I have to think about also what does technology look like in here. We've made it just part of what they're already doing. And so if you're following this learner growth experience and we make these recommendations, then you don't have to worry about how you're using it, because we've already supported you in that way. We also use this language in all of our communication. So we recently implemented an LMS. We brought in Schoology. And when we communicated that change to our teachers last year, we spent the spring doing some front-loading work, making sure that we aligned our new software to all of those things that I've been talking about, so that they could see that first big hurdle of, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do something differently? Why do I have to change the way I'm doing something? And so, showing them that this is not just change for the sake of change or because we thought this would be really exciting. This is because we have these needs and these things that we're trying to accomplish, and we think this is the best tool to allow you to do that. When we communicated the change to our families and our community, this is how you're going to log in, this is how you access it, this is what it looks like on an iPad, this is what it looks like to use the app. We're using the common language again, and we're communicating to parents that the reason you're getting this email and the reason you have access to this is because we want you to see how we provide this tool to support students in all of these pieces of our learning framework and of our graduate profile. Even down to our weekly tech tips email. We send an email out to all of our teachers every Tuesday. My team is sending it out right now. I've already checked it this morning. And when we send that out, we have categories, we have sections every week, and we use that same common language because we have to make sure that we are aligned with what is important to everyone. Because if we are focused just on what is important to us, we know that we're not going to get as far and we're not going to be able to accomplish our goals. Okay, so I know that a lot of those things are really specific to Richardson, but also that a lot of you have those as well. So I wanted to make sure that we had time to talk about any of that. I don't know which pieces you'd like to know more about in terms of that work. I sent a picture of that front slide to my executive director this morning. And she got a kick out of that because I feel like this is the main thing that I talk about even in my own organization all the time, telling all of our department staff, we have to make sure that we talk about these things and we ensure this alignment. So.
Thank you so much. So, does anybody have any questions? Lift a hand aloft. I will come to you.
Hello. Just a quick question. You mentioned you have a team of 8 or 2 teams, one of 8, one of 7. Mm-hmm. Can you describe what that structure is and how they, what they do day to day?
Yes. That it makes me laugh because whenever we interview for that position, it's always the first thing that they ask. And I'm like, that is a great question. Every day is different. Right now I have 2 separate teams that provide essentially the same support, but in different ways. So my central team, I have 7 of them, and they support all 50 of our campuses. I have 5 of them supporting elementary. So they have about 6 or 7 campuses each, and they schedule, so going back to some of those things that were in the campus improvement plan, so they schedule the really formal support, like they've just, we're about to end our first quarter next Thursday. By the end of the first quarter, they will have each been on every campus for 3 full days of planning. Outside of that, then it's really whatever someone needs. So it might be working with another department. Right now we're working with our teaching and learning department to get ready for our district-wide day and presenting alongside of them. They do a lot of going out and co-teaching. So, they'll be there for planning, they'll advise, they'll have professional learning for teachers, and then teachers will say, okay, I want to do this and I don't know how, can you come in? And so they do a lot of that also. And then a lot of time together as a team creating resources and building examples, curating things for our teachers, creating videos. The other 8, they are out on campuses. And so they are in our 8 junior highs. And they work to provide the same opportunities as my central team. They're called the I team, as they do. And then what they also do is pair up to support. So we have feeder patterns, learning communities. And so there's 2 in each. And so what they will do is, join together. So you have one person facilitating and you have somebody else that can kind of break off or provide extra support. But they also go with my I team to the high schools. So the high schools are a challenge because they are very large. You have large staff and they're on a block schedule, which means it takes us 2 days to get through everyone. So having them to go with my central team and support the high school really helps us be able to reach everybody in those 2 days when you have a large staff. So that's the model. The job descriptions are almost identical. It's just that facilitation of being on site versus central. And really, to get back to the heart of that question of how they're different, we have 36 elementaries. And so I don't think there's any world where I would have any model for elementary specifically outside of having them central because there's just so many schools, and I don't see my team growing to even 18 to split 2 of them. So they're housed there to go out, and then my 2 central specialists also to either work with central departments who are secondary facing or go out to those high schools and then kind of coordinate with the campus staff too. Yeah.
Any other questions? Excellent.
Thank you. I had a quick question on when you are trying to adopt a piece of new technology and you're trying to make a proposal, do you use that, that framework for empowered learners to kind of show proof of this is what we think it'll do? And do you try to align it, I'm assuming, with one of those district initiatives? And how fleshed out do you do it? Do you do a small school as a base case to show some data? How do you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say we've really probably in the time since we've had that, really we've maybe brought in 1 or 2 new things. What we've really done is look at what do we already have and make sure that we're using it to its full potential and kind of realigning how we use it. So looking, and that's really where especially my central team is critical. So looking at the tools we have and trying to look at them maybe non-traditionally. So for example, tools that we have that maybe teachers are thinking of them as just for assessment, but now we're going back and looking at it for, is there a way that we can use this out of the box or design something a little differently so that it, kicks off our lesson in the Ignite phase or something like that. So I think the first part of that was going back to look at everything we already have and see how it can meet needs, maybe not necessarily the most obvious way, but what else? And that way now we know where we have maybe a lot of things overlapping or where we have room to look at additional tools in the future.
Hi. You mentioned professional development or professional learning. How do you provide that for your staff, and what does that look like in your district?
We provide it in every single way that we can come up with. So, it's a challenge having a large organization in terms of building locations. So for a long time, we were trying to offer things centrally after school, and people don't come. And I get that also because I have 2 elementary-aged kids who have activities, and at the end of the day, I've been a classroom teacher. It's hard to do that. So what we really try to focus on now is going to the individual campuses. And so, like I was mentioning earlier, my team is just wrapping up having 3 planning days or PLC days on every single campus. And so they're providing professional learning embedded in what the teachers are already doing. So when they have their formal planning meetings as a campus and with their administrators and their instructional coaches, my team is in there with them so they can provide really personalized, relevant, on-the-spot support. On top of that, we also, I would say the main way that we provide professional learning is through some teacher cohorts. So we have an elementary cohort. This is our 5th year facilitating that. And we have a secondary cohort. This is our 3rd year. And we spend a lot of time with them throughout the year, really intentionally focusing on all of these things, but also with the luxury of time. So we fund their subs, which means that I also have like no fun flair for them. I have no prizes. I have nothing fancy because that is where all of the budget goes, to their subs. But we pull them off for either a full day or a half day once each month and go really in depth with them. So we usually design it where they come in and they first experience one of our devices or tools as a student, and then we go behind the scenes and show them how to recreate that, and then they have time to plan with each other. And we really follow that same pattern throughout. For our elementary teachers, that includes earning Apple Teacher Portfolio. Some of them go on to do Apple Learning Coach as a side piece to that, but the professional learning opportunities are challenging because after school is hard and then the size is hard. So we found really that either going to them directly. With our secondary schools, we also will offer lunch and learns because they have more variance in their schedule, so we can go and be there for a big chunk of the day and be able to have teachers come in and out, either ask questions or us provide something really quick. Pretty much any opportunity. I don't say no to anything. So when our teaching and learning department came to me recently and they said, we have this district-wide day for secondary on November 4th. We need 16 rooms during the day. Yes, we'll figure it out. We'll make it work. I only have 15 people, and one of them is going on maternity leave. But I will be there. I will pull some of our superstar teachers from our cohorts. And yeah, so I take every opportunity that another department offers us, and then we do that hybrid of either going to the campus or providing really intentional pull-off campus support with kind of also the goal of hopefully building some community. When we have those cohorts, we hope that both they meet other teachers across the district, and that kind of sparks something, but also that our alumni continue to carry that on and provide some professional learning at their campus as well. Yes?
Okay. I wanted to ask, so an issue that we have in our district is that due to the size of our campuses, we're not able to make technology updates as a whole throughout the campus. So we'll have instructors that may be onboarded or may have come back from a sabbatical and the technology has changed. How do you instruct them to be familiar with the equipment? So from an onboarding perspective or from a unified technology experience perspective, how do you handle that at your district across your campuses?
So for new hires, I have built out an asynchronous course that all of our new hires go through, and actually it's not technology specific, it's every single department has a role in that, and that gives us the opportunity to front load information. So they go through that in the summer before we start. They get some non-duty credit. I know everybody does that differently. Our teachers are required to get 18 hours of non-duty professional learning credit. So they work through that, and that front loads information for them, like what hardware is going to be in their classroom. They receive their devices when they go through orientation. So we do that all on one day at one time. And I would say, probably have about 400 to 500 new teachers every year. And throughout the summer, they sign up for orientation. They do all of their things. They get their badge. They meet with HR. They do all of their things, including get their devices, so that they can start getting comfortable with them and start getting familiar with them. And then they go through that onboarding course. They're able to see what tools we purchase that we have available to them. Of course, it's not that simple, because now also, like, everyone purchases something that uses technology, but it may not be our thing. But those things are all in that onboarding course too, so they can start at least hearing what we have and being aware of that. And then when we have our small chunks of time with them in our full new hire days at the beginning of the year, we focus on the things that are essential for them to get up and running. We also have a great relationship with our professional learning department. So they have cohorts for new hires to make sure that new hires have support all year. So for example, we're going back in November. When they're hosting their next session for new hires, we're gonna go in and support with some follow-up. So we started off, for example, in August, we said, okay, here's how you use Schoology and Seesaw. These are the big new things for everybody, but we're gonna give you a sneak peek. But also, here's how you use Apple Classroom and Jamf Teacher. Here's how you use GoGuardian on your Chromebooks to get them started. And now we'll come back in November with maybe some more instructional instead of facilitation, and support them again. So. The question of keeping current staff fresh, I don't have a super clear answer for that, other than what we do when we go out to the campuses. So right now, my teams are focused in this first quarter. They've been really focused on getting everybody up and running with their portfolios, their goals, and our LMS platforms. But also, part of their charge has been to check in with new hires. And at one campus that might be 10, one campus that might be 2, at a high school campus that might be 30, and making sure that the new hires feel like they know how to do the things that are essential to them right now, and then we kind of build on that throughout the year. So it's kind of that same answer of doing things hybrid, like what we need to take care of centrally, and then what we go to the campus and then try to follow up on. Yeah. I mean, it's hard because we have things like, for example, we've had Nearpod since 2016. I will still go into a training and like say something offhand, and someone will say like, what is that? How do you use that? And I'm like, okay. So, all you can do is offer everything that you have the opportunity to, and people have to be willing to learn at that time, and sometimes it might take them 8 years before they want to learn about that tool.
Hi, I've got 2 questions essentially about life cycle. And one, as you've been with the district for a while, do you recall back when you were first establishing this overarching plan, and maybe you had an array of devices and trying to find consistency with those devices, and what that process was to make it more uniform throughout the district? And my other question is more practical. It's with the way apps are updated nowadays with some of the teaching apps that some teachers may prefer, and the district moves on, but some teachers prefer to stick with something they've already invested time and content in. How do you establish consistency with that in your district?
Yeah, those are great questions. So I will say, as far as the device selections, those decisions were made before I moved into technology. So when I came in 2017, they were rolling out one-to-one Chromebooks in secondary, and they already had that, and they were already planning that in 2018, every campus would roll out iPads in elementary. So those things were already decided. It is something that, as we evaluate every time we refresh and every time we're planning for our next bond cycle, we're thinking about the devices. And obviously it's not as simple as the cost. It kind of goes into your next question. But the professional learning, if we make a change, There is so much professional learning that goes into that, and how we support teachers and students and families and anything like that. So that question of teachers that want to stay with a tool is so relevant, because I really think, I'm sure everyone experienced this, during the pandemic and that quick pivot, everybody jumped on offering a freemium. And then, once that ran out, everybody wants to keep their stuff there. So we've tried to draw a respectful but hard line on, we can only support district tools. My team cannot be really good at every single thing that's out there that exists. And it's not a good model of support in terms of consistency and the alignment to all these things if we have 12 different tools that they choose that really all do the same thing. So thinking about some of the other questions, we really went back to, okay, these are the things that we have to be able to do. These are the devices that we have. These are our initiatives. These are our goals. How do these tools support that? Which one does this the best? Is there a hole where, so we have purchased one tool in the last year that we weren't expecting, and that was formative. And that really came out of when we started making changes to what people could do signing in with Google. We just had a lot of requests, and so we went out and we got feedback. We looked at the tool, we evaluated what we had, and we determined that their request and the need that they were asking for, that they felt like our other things didn't meet, was valid. And so when we brought that in, of course, everybody's got their special thing that they wanted that wasn't that. But we try to get teacher feedback and then our own expertise at what we have available, and then all of this other, overarching stuff to make sure that we make a good choice there. Another thing that we've battled, and I would say really has cleaned up over the last year, is our legal department supported creating a unified purchasing process and pushing every single campus also through that and through the district DPA. Because another issue that we had that created a lot of confusion was that individual campuses were using their title money to purchase a tool that maybe overlapped with something that we had, and then the teachers, in their minds, that the district purchased it. They want us to support it, but it's not ours, and we don't know what it is, and it may, serve the same purpose as something we've already bought. So we've done a lot of work to both clean up that process, but also educate our campuses on what we have available, and letting them know, hey, we have this already that accomplishes the same thing or meets that need. We are happy to support you in any way that you need to get your teachers comfortable in using that, whatever that rollover looks like. So we've had a lot of things kind of phase out over the last year or two while we've tightened that up. But yeah, that was a real challenge, especially coming out of the pandemic, with all the things that everybody signed up for and then got really attached to. Yeah.
My question would kind of piggybacks off that previous question over here.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
When it comes to choosing certain software and apps that the districts are using or schools are using, is that done more so at you guys' level, or like you kind of just stated where you already have what you have and you let them know what you're working with works best for what you see, and you kind of try to meet in the middle? Is that how you guys do it?
Yeah, we have a lot already. And so, and not to say that there's not something out there, that we need, but we have a lot of things already, and a lot of people don't know how to use that to their full capacity. And so I think we try to start with, is there something that already does this? And really our elementaries and our iPads are a great example of that, because there's so much built in, whether it's in accessibility features or it's in the native apps, the things that they can do in Keynote and Pages, things that they can do that are built in that they just don't know. So we do try to start there, because as we bring more tools in, that's also more that we have to support. It's more out there for us, for professional learning, for my team to be experts in. And then anytime we purchase something, I'm really thinking heavily about, when we commit to something, what I don't want to do is in 2 years say, never mind, we can't pay for that anymore, and then take it away. So we try to be really aware of making sure that everything that we bring on is sustainable for us to continue using it. Because if we're going to train teachers on it and then decide we can't fund it anymore, we're going to really frustrate people and burn some bridges. So yeah, I really try to make sure that what we have is being fully utilized and leveraged before looking at something new.
We are at our one last question.
I'm from Orlando, Florida, coming up here to this conference, and you might have already said this before I came in, but you're driving down a road of consistency, correct? And training your teachers and all these platforms, because in Orlando, Florida, we have probably a ton of applications that we support. How did you go about convincing your, and don't laugh when I say this, your non-technology savvy leaders to go down this road with you and to conform to standards and put boundaries up? Good question, eh?
I don't know if I've convinced them. Honestly, it's a lot of support from my own leadership. So I have an executive director above me and then our chief technology officer. And our CTO being able to go to the superintendent's cabinet and talk about why this is important and why this matters, and really coming from a, and it depends on the group that we're talking about, talking about whether it's student data privacy or just, really good use of our resources and our money and being accountable to the community for that, and then also what realistically we can support well. And most of the time, I try to come from a place of presumed positive intent that they don't know what we have or they don't know how to use it. And so that first layer was always, well, hey, I think we could do this. How can I help you bring this into your campus or bring this into your teachers or bring this into your classroom? I will sit beside you. My team will come in and help you. And we can get you into this other tool and platform. And then the other piece was really just educating campus administrators, for example, who have been purchasing things on their own, why it matters to use something consistently. And sometimes that's even talking about things like, hey, when your 5th and 6th graders move up to junior high, there's a lot of mental load that goes on with that. Jumping from 3 teachers to 7 in the building and all of this and all these new freedoms. It helps if there's some consistency in also the things that you're using. So us trying to look at a really big picture and then find all those little ways that it matters that might speak to the group that we're talking to at that time. Yeah. So thank y'all so much for being here.
Thank you, Morgan.